My name is Gabi Schwartz. I'm a senior product manager, and I've been working in product for 5 years. My company is called GoodRx. They are in the health tech space and are primarily known for finding the cheapest prescription drugs. I work specifically right now on a team that's responsible for all of the communications that we have with our users. We have an app and we also have a website. I primarily work on the app right now, so I'm working on figuring out how to send more information that's valuable to customers so that they can better make informed decisions about the drugs and the prescriptions that they want to purchase and where they want to get them from. So a senior product manager obviously depends on where you work, but you're responsible for figuring out the customer needs of the business and working with all the necessary teams of the company, whether that be engineering, design, data, finance, et cetera, to figure out how to bring everyone together to build a digital experience that will ultimately improve the customer experience. To be a senior product manager, you have to be able to do a number of different skill sets. So on the technical side, being able to do data analysis, being able to pull data, as well as sometimes being able to actually understand the coding languages that your engineers are working with so that you can help troubleshoot and problem solve. Being able to also build dashboards and be able to visualize data so that you can better tell a story. So a typical day usually start off by going through emails and Slack messages from my coworkers. Then I'll take a look at what's going on in the data. If, for example, we have some sort of A/B test or we've put out a new feature, I want to be able to monitor it and see how it's doing. Then I tend to have a lot of meetings and I'll talk a lot with engineering and check in with them to see how development's going on the projects. At the end of the day, I'll usually do a summary, go through everything I've done, and figure out what I need to do the next day. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. I went through a lot of phases. I wanted to be a doctor at one point. I wanted to be an actress at one point. I think at one point I wanted to be an orthodontist, which is very random. And at one point maybe even a teacher. But I've always been interested in the sciences. As a little kid, I honestly didn't really think much of technology, largely because it wasn't as big of an industry when I was growing up. And then when I was in college, I studied a mixture of psychology and neuroscience, and I got really into research. And that's where I started working on the more technical side of things, doing some data analysis, things like that. And I was trying to think about, what do I want to do? I really wanted to make sure I was working on impactful work that was going to be able to reach a lot of people and also be creative at the same time. And so when I was looking for jobs, I ended up finding a role actually in the data science department of a company. But I wasn't really getting that creative aspect of the job that I was really hoping for. And so that's how I ended up hearing about product management. And I think it's a really great mix of the creative side and the technical side at the same time. So some of the skill sets that I need, I think being able to tell a cohesive story about what's going on, being able to use data, understand how data fits in with the business. I am working with folks that are, digging into code, but I'm also working with people that have no idea what that means. And so being able to communicate with different people across the company and make sure that you're telling the same story, but in almost like different languages, depending on who you're talking to. I will work with legal often to make sure that what we're doing is up to code and, is all as it should be. I'll work with finance to be able to, forecast or measure financial impact on the company. And I also work a lot with marketing. So my team is heavily, I would say, intertwined with the marketing team because marketing is, heavily responsible for how we talk to our users. I've always been kind of a team sport person, even growing up. So it's one of the things I really like about what I do. And I want to make sure that I'm showing up and helping everyone else on my team towards this kind of common goal. One of the, I would say, big milestones and projects that I'm proud of is we actually just launched a notification center in our app. It's essentially a place in the app where we can send information to users, notifications that allow them to navigate around the app more easily. To be a product manager, You have to be able to see the big picture and the small details at the same time. Being able to communicate with all different types of people, and having an understanding, even if you're not the one coding or building the product, being able to understand how the technologies work and how everything's kind of linked together. I work hybrid, so I work 2 days in my office and 3 days from home. I prefer hybrid because I do think it's helped with a lot of relationship building. I do like going into the office and seeing people's faces and building those relationships, and I do think it makes work a lot easier when you can just have quick conversations rather than having to figure out a time to talk on the phone. When I'm not working, there are a lot of things I like to do. I do various forms of art, so I make jewelry, I paint. Yeah, I just love taking on new creative hobbies and being able to do something away from a screen for a little bit, which is really nice as a break. I have a dog, so I like to take him for walks and we'll go to parks and stuff together. And I love music, so while I'm not musically talented, I love to go to shows and find live music and new music to listen to. I think in 5 years, I would love to be leading a team in product and having maybe a little bit more ownership over the company strategy. It is definitely a male-dominated industry in certain departments, but I've been really inspired and excited to see more women in leadership. And I think being able to be in a room, and whether it's a lot of men, being able to still feel like you have a voice and you can raise your hand. And sometimes it's just a matter of a little bit of courage and speaking up. I think that's been something that took me a bit of time. But people want to hear your opinions, and I don't think that it's easier said than done, but don't be shy because you're there for a reason. Figuring out where you want to be involved. Do you want to be building the product? Do you want to be doing the engineering work and coding? Do you want to be looking at data and working on kind of telling stories with data? Do you like working kind of more on your own and having more alone time to kind of be heads down, or do you like to work with other people? Every company these days is a tech company, so figuring out what you might be able to get involved in on the technology side for some companies that maybe you're really interested in or care about.